Welcome, everybody. We're here with another episode of the Ace Show with David Shoup. Corey, Simon, and I are joining him today just so we can get some information out about David's background. We're going to do a little digging around, a little conversation here, a little more of a personal take on things. Everything you've seen in the community so far has been modules and more of a formal type presentation. So we figured it's time we jump on and we all do a recording where we kind of just see where it leads us. So it's good to see you guys. I know it's early where David's at right now. You're on Pacific time, so he just woke up to do this, so we appreciate you doing that. And yeah, exactly. So yeah, basically I guess we would want to start off with, I guess we could take it back to, not to childhood, but I guess your professional training, if you want to go back to college, we got to work, how did all this come about? And you go back as far as you'd like.
Sure.
And then we can take it from there, yeah.
How did we get even to this point here? My background is pretty diverse background. I spent, my college years in theater. So I got my undergraduate degree in acting and did a lot of children's theater, a lot of musicals and whatnot as an undergraduate at Central Washington University here in Ellensburg. And while I was, kind of pursuing an acting degree, I also worked for a company called Southwestern Advantage where I sold educational books door to door. And so I started, learning the art of sales at a young age. And that's how I paid for all my college. And I did that for about 8 summers where I went out and I would sell educational books. And so, you kind of combine those kind of this entertainment acting background with some coaching and some sales training. And really where it started was my first summer. We went to the headquarters in Nashville to kind of get the training before we went out and worked. And I remember watching on the screen a video of a gentleman by the name of Mort Utley. So he had passed away, I think, 2 years before. He was really big in insurance sales, I believe. But Mort Utley was a keynote speaker via video. And I remember watching him speak. And I remember getting chills. I don't know if you've ever seen someone really motivational. And I remember getting chills and going, somewhere in the back of my mind said, ooh, I'd like to do that someday. And that was kind of the seed or the germination of the idea of me being a speaker coach and presenter. And it's really where it started was my college years, watching someone that I was like, ooh. And then I followed and watched Zig Ziglar, who you've heard me quote him before. I love Zig Ziglar. He passed away also. But so these mentors that I watched, some speakers who presented, then Brian Tracy, and all these great sales presenting coaches, classic guys, and Jim Rohn, all these guys I got kind of motivated by and said, actually, I'd love to do that. And, and now here I am. I'm doing a lot of that right now.
I don't know how you did that. What was you said 8 summers.
Selling books. How did I do that? I like adventures. I like trying new things. And I remember getting, sitting as a college kid at our union building in one of the little rooms. And I remember being interviewed by who ends up being a really close friend of mine, Ty Thompson. And he was telling me, it's a hard job. People have to work really hard. You're going to have to sell books door to door. You're going to have to find your own place. You're going to have to, figure out, learn all these skills about running your own business. And you could also make a lot of money to pay for your college. And if you do well enough, you can go on a trip to Hawaii or Mexico or whatever, or Sizzler trip. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. And I remember going back and telling my parents about it. And, hey, Mom, I know that, I'm going to be going out to another state and I'm going to be selling books door to door. They go, well, what state? I don't quite know yet. How are you going to get there? I'm not quite sure yet. Where are you going to live? I don't know the answer to that. And any parent's like, wait, what? Where's the, and I remember her saying, I don't think you should do that. And I said, well, Mom, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. And then I remember the phone being set down, and I hear the footprints of my dad. What's this thing I'm hear you saying you're going to be going somewhere doing, you're not doing that. And I said, well, Dad, I'm going to do it. You can't stop me. I'm doing it. And they called Roger, my older brother, and said, you need to go find out what David's doing and talk him out of it. And I remember Roger sitting in the same spot I was a couple meetings later. And I was sitting in the back going, I'm doing it. And Roger was there. He's going, I'm going to figure out, what's this scam that they've got him doing? And I do remember the time when they mentioned the trip to what they call a Sizzler trip. After my brother just loves when you say work hard. Oh, he says all the perfect words. You have to work hard. You're going to be working, 80 hours a week. It's a challenge. You could make a lot of money. And those were, my brother was like, these are great words. Okay. So they're not really kind of blowing smoke up your butt, right? This is good. And then the moment when I knew Roger was in and I was pissed because I wanted to do it myself is when he said, and you can win a trip to Sizzler. And I remember Roger turning towards me and going, yeah, okay. And so I was like, oh, now I definitely can do it, right? Because my parents are going to be fine if Big Brother wants to do it. Anyways, that's the story of how it all got started and how I did it. I mean, I got trained. That's the whole thing, right? If anything you want to do, you got to be prepared for. And so I spent 3 months preparing and learning the sales talk and learning the pitch and, basically learning all the things that could happen during the course of a summer. And so by the time I knocked on my first door, I was really prepared for all the things that happened. And my coach did a really good job, right? And so, I guess the advice is if you're really preparing you're trying to do something new, think about all the challenges that are going to come up. Imagine all the challenges that might show up and then kind of get this checklist of things and imagine the scenario. How are you going to handle it? And that's what I did. As a college kid, I learned this kind of imagining scenarios. How do you solve it? So when the problem comes up, it's either not a big deal anymore because you already solved it in your brain, or, you do have the skills because you tried to figure it out and you were a problem solver. Anyways, that was a long answer to that question.
No, that was a good answer. So the follow-up to that I have, and I think everyone wants to know, is how many no's did you take beat over your head before you got your first yes?
Okay, well, I was really bad my first summer. Okay, let's just be honest, which is normal, right? I was, especially the first several weeks. But the average, right? They say you're going to knock on 50 doors in a day. You probably you might knock on 80 doors or whatever. You might talk to about 50, but you show the books to 30. So you have to 30 times where you go, here, let me share with you the books, right? And you do that demonstration of the product to get maybe 2 people who buy. And if you did that, and if you could sell 2 books a day, you're going to walk away. And this is back in, the 90s, right? You're going to walk away making $6,000-$7,000 a month. And you think, a year for the summer, for 3 months. Now, some people made a lot more than that, right? I ended up walking home with a check for about just under $6,000 my first summer. But my first 6-7 weeks, I was not making much at all. My first week, I made the equivalent of over 80 hours of work. I made the equivalent of about $100 my first week. My second week, I made probably about $150. But every week as it went on, I improved every single week. To by the end, that last couple weeks, I was making $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for the week. Right? And some people might not think that's a big deal, but as a college kid, by the end, I had earned about $7,000. I only spent about 14 because we learned the art of low expenses. I walked away with just about $6,000 my first summer, and I was sold. I was the first person to be chosen as a manager, not because I was the best salesperson, but because I was the person that showed up with the best attitude and the attitude to improve and get better every week. And every single week I did improve and always picked one new thing to get better at. And so, incremental improvements make a big deal over time. And, you show up with the right attitude. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, consistency and repetition, right? So I want to back up a little bit. So you told your parents, first of all, you went to acting school, and then you said you were going to go sell stuff door to door.
Yeah.
Those, I mean, we don't have to rehash that conversation, but that sounds like a parent's worst nightmare right there. Both of those.
Well, I went to Central Washington. Originally, I wanted to get, I was thinking, yeah, I'll get a business degree or I'll get a psychology. And as much as I kind of liked the classes on psychology, I was awful. I was awful. I would get C's and D's, and I was trying. And I took a theater class, and there was this old woman named Betty Evans, and she would show up with gin, a glass of gin with like a lemon or an orange or whatever kind of you put in that. And this is back in the day where, I guess teachers could just drink, right? And she's an older woman, 75, maybe close to 80 years old, been teaching theater. And I remember really liking her. I liked her energy. I liked her character, and she really liked me. And I remember this is coming back after my first. So this is the second year when I decided maybe I'll do theater, because when I came back, actually I took Betty Evans my first year, and I liked her. And then I came back after my first summer, and I missed the audition because I came at right when school was starting. And so I went to Betty and I asked her, can I, get in a show? And I got in a show. And I thought this was really good. I remember watching, it's a Moliere. I think the play was called Tartuffe. And I remember watching the actors on stage. That's actually, now I'm recalling, that's actually how I got into really wanting to do it. Because I remember this woman who played the character of Doreen, and she was hilarious. And I was like, that looks so awesome. That looks so fun. So I volunteered every single day to be the usher for that show after I watched it. I went and I wanted to be the usher, so I wanted to watch the show as often as possible. And that's when I got to Betty. I was like, this sounds really fun. I think I'd like to do this. And she asked me to be in her original musical called Down the Road Dugan, I think is what it's called. And had I been in theater before and been through it, it might have been difficult, because that show, apparently, from what I understand, we worked way, way harder than the average show because it was new and I didn't know, but I was having a blast. I was like, this is great. Oh my gosh, I get to do the musical, I get to dance, I get to entertain. And so that's how acting got in. And it was not originally going to be, I wasn't going to get that degree, and I liked it. And I liked it so much. And my parents were like, by that time, after I'd already kind of done my summers of selling, my first summer of selling, they're like, well, David's going to do what David's going to do. And so long answer, but that was how I got started. And so Central wasn't like a theater school. I went to graduate school though after that. So I went to graduate school at North Carolina for theater. But that was after I was like, okay, I think I could make a career of this. I think I like this. I think I could be a good actor. I think, I like the idea of entertaining people. And so
you had some success selling, which at the time you probably just thought this is just a good job to get me through, get some perks and everything else. At what point after going to graduate school did everything come together? Did you come back around and actually start getting sales jobs, like professional sales jobs after that, where you started getting paid and started working with some of these corporations?
Yeah, after graduate school, I went to New York. And this was in 2001. So I went to New York in October of 2001. If anyone remembers what. So September 11th had happened. And the agents that I had acquired, the people who had expressed interest in me, because I went to a showcase before, I had several people who were interested in me. All that interest was gone after September 11th. Everything was thrown. So I had to start absolutely from square one when I went to New York. And so I was in New York acting, doing stand-up comedy, and I was making a living, most of my money, as a fitness trainer. And it turns out I was one of the better ones in the entire company. I was in the top 5 for New York sports clubs. And so I was pretty successful at that. Not necessarily because I was this big guy, but because I cared about people. And I cared about their progress, so I would really create detailed spreadsheets of how to kind of follow them. And so I really liked this idea of coaching people and motivating people. And I had done that through Southwestern, right? I had I had recruited and trained others to sell books too. So I started learning that skills of that, and I'd have to get up and I'd have to present, and I did a bunch of that stuff, but I didn't really think I was going to be a professional speaker or anything like that. But if you combine kind of my acting background, my stand-up background when I was in New York, my theater work, my sales work, it really just kind of made sense. But the time I really, like the real decision part was I had spent, this is after about 6 years in New York, I had an opportunity to go to Iraq. This was in the Second War, and I had a chance to be a morale booster for the troops. And so I went to Iraq, and I stayed on a base, a small little base called Camp Scania in Iraq, which was like a fuel depot for the troops as they came through, right? And so it was in between kind of the real dangerous spot and then I think Kuwait, if my brain is remembering right. And while I was there, right, I had nothing else to do but just basically hang out with the troops, entertain them. And I had, during my off time, there was nothing really to do, right? And so I started doing some research on, gosh, how could I be a professional speaker? And so I actually, while I was in Iraq, I was creating potential trainings and programs and things that I could do to. And then when I came back from Iraq, after about 6 months, I looked up a friend of mine and found out that he had a company. He had a company called Freedom Personal Development. He was a speaker coach. He owned the company. Turns out there's a couple of guys from the Southwestern background that I knew. And they had their own company. And they were hiring people to be presentation coaches and delivery coaches for a memory training program. And I had this kind of list of things, and I was trying to figure out, how do I make a living as a speaker? And so I was like, wait, why would I try and get my teeth knocked in for 2 years? Because it takes a couple years to get anything rolling. Why would I do that when I could maybe join a company, if they would have me, that could teach me the whole process of being a speaker and being a coach and running a business and, you know, in the presentation world, how to kind of market and connect with and then deliver workshops to, right? You know, so there was a process to that. And so fortunately, before I went back to Iraq, this gentleman allowed me to go. I was in Seattle. I flew out to, I don't remember. I think it might have been Nashville. I flew out, I think, to Nashville, where he was doing a workshop. Maybe it was Wisconsin. I don't recall now. But I flew out. I think it was Nashville. I flew out to Nashville, watched him do it, and go, I have to do this, because it was so cool. A 2-day workshop. By the end of it, people were able to remember names, details, the amount of things that people were surprised at their ability to recall with just some techniques was astounding. And I was like the biggest student of the game. I was like, this is so fun. I got to do it. And so fortunately, he hired me, and then I had to go through the whole learning process of how to book appointments and schedule things. But that was the beginning of kind of my journey. And ever since that point, I have been doing coaching, training. I learned the framework. I learned the way to kind of create things. And that's also where the idea of ACE started, because this presentation stuff became a result of coaching people on memory training and how to remember presentations. But I would have clients reach out, I've got a presentation, can you help me? And I applied some of the stuff that I had learned and how to kind of handle nerves, and I created structures. And so I started using some of my memory training and then using some of my own stuff that I had created to help myself be better as a presenter. And that's really how the whole ACE and the SOFA system and the PAN approach and all these things and the ACE method, all this stuff came about. Really, that was the start of it.
It's really cool how all the things you've done have just kind of fed into each other, which is kind of rare, because, you know, a lot of people set off in one direction and then they end up having to change, go somewhere completely different. But everything kind of fed into each other to get you to where we are now.
Yes.
What is also really interesting is that time overseas. I imagine if there was internet, it was probably slow back then. I imagine this was like, you know, mid 2000s. So I'm wondering, these days, like, that's something that's kind of missing. Nobody really has time just to go off and sit with themselves for that long. So are you just sitting over there in the desert, just like writing on legal pads? Like, what was your day like when you were just conceptualizing all these things and trying to figure out what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, I had 12-hour shifts, and it was 12 hours, 7 days a week. So there was no day off. but I would, after a work time, I would go to our little portals that we'd have in like a little place where I could get on the computer and I could do. But yeah, it was slower. It didn't have the same kind of search capabilities or anything like that. And so I don't recall actually ever using the computers for that. I literally just had a pen and paper, and I would write down, and I created outlines and outlines. What would I want to do? You know, how to be a good speaker, how to be a, you know, how to, from an idea I said, how do you come back from a setback to success? And, you know, so I started kind of coming up with these ideas of just how do you goal set? And I had read it, I had, if anybody's familiar with Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul person, he wrote a book called The Success Principles. And while I was in New York, it was the first book that I ever read I read more than one time. I first read it for enjoyment, and then I read it to literally go through all of the exercises within it. And that's where I created my own goals book, and I created all these things to support me. In fact, I don't know if I still... Yeah. This is my goals book, my life goals book. 124 things to accomplish and 34 countries to visit in my lifetime. And I literally created images for all the things that I wanted to do. So this list of places and things I want to do, and then I created images for all of them. And then when I did it, you see I say success. I stamp it with success. When I did it. Success, right? All these things that I did, and then I swap it out with my own image, and I still have this. I'm working on...
I saw learn to tap dance there. You just happened to show us that page.
Yes.
And there was a success stamp on that.
That's correct. I took tap dancing classes to learn a little bit. I know shuffle ball kick, shuffle off the buffalo. You know, so
this could be your next viral post on LinkedIn.
So yeah, I created that book, and I still use it. And actually, I'm doing a version, let's say 5.0 right now, where I'm taking, because this is, it's been a while since I went back on it, and I'm trying to kind of fill it in again and see, well, how much have I actually accomplished? All these places I wanted to travel. And so getting back to that, I was like, how can I help other people learn how to do that? Because every time I would show someone that book, they're like, this is so cool. How do you do it? And when I would try and explain it to them, they're like, oh, that took a long time. Well, yeah, anything worth doing is worth taking the time to do, right? And so I really wanted to get clarity on the things I wanted to accomplish in my life. And I'm happy to show more of that. But that gives you a sense of what it was and what really inspired me to kind of just keep moving towards goals. And one of them was be a best-selling author, which I ended up being for my children's books. Another was to speak in front of I think 1,000 people. Did that. Get a check. My first speaker check. Got it. All these little things that I did that was really, really cool. I wonder if I got off track on the question that you had. Although the ideas came about from those things that I did. And that's really, how do I do goals? How do you manage your time? All these kind of standard personal development things. I thought, I've got a unique background, right? I've got a background in sales. I also have a background in theater. I feel like I can really impact people. And I really believe that, I do believe about, being of service, helping others to succeed as much as you can. And so kind of combine all of those, it seems like a good fit.
So I have a question here. This is a critical element across everything that you do, is this fountain of energy that you're just tapped into. Like, you are just a high energy resonating person.
Very true.
So my question is, was this something that you always had, as a kid, or was this something that you developed, after learning successes, or being in order to do sales, I need to be energetic, or in order to do stand-up and acting, I need to be energetic? Which came first?
Well, I think I've always been kind of I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and I don't know, there's probably a lot of medical research about what the youngest, but I was always looking to get attention. And I think maybe it starts with when I was younger, I would always watch videos of my family, and I was never in it. And I'd be like, where am I? Where am I? And my parents would be like, well, you're not born yet. Or there you are as the little baby not doing anything. I was like, where was your energy for pictures later on when I was younger? When I was, they stopped taking pictures and videos, and it's like, oh. And so maybe I was like, maybe somewhere deep inside, I was like, I will make you know me. I will be entertaining. But I've always kind of had that energy, and my parents encouraged it as long as it was directed in good things. It was always encouraged, and I feel like I was very fortunate. My parents taught me some really good things, and I learned from my older brothers the mistakes that you don't make, as happens. And I feel like I was around the right people. I spent time with the right people. I made good decisions. I was extremely busy as a kid, and so a lot of who I was shaped as a part of my parents, my brothers, and the kind of the decisions I made younger as a kid. And so it just carried with me. And I'm like this. If you ask my brothers, who I am right now is no different than who I was as a kid. They're like the same dorky energy, and it's worked for me so far.
I know very, very few people who are passionate about, and this is sad actually, that are actually passionate about what they do for a living, because let's face it, I mean, we do need to make money. We need to earn money to live. So not everything we do for money is going to be fun all the time. Now, some people could argue and say, like, well, if you do what you love, like, sure, there are those people that every minute of every day is bliss for them. But for the most part, a lot of people get into long careers, and they like it when they start off, or they get into it because it's something they were interested in, but then they just kind of slug through it until they retire. And what's the meme? Work 40 hours a week till you're 50, then yell at cable news till you die, like one of those stupid sayings. But
I like that though.
Yeah.
I know some
but it
people
does
like
sound like you've held on to like the passion, and I obviously from working with you for this short time, I've seen it, for this long, and you really are doing. I don't want to say it's repetitive, but it's consistency. It's repetitive. And obviously you're adding new elements to your coaching, and I'm sure over your corporate career and all the trainings you did there. But it really is like similar systems along the way. How do you wake up every day and like, I really want to do this? Because a lot of times I imagine, like we're going to do in the community here, you're going to be coaching people from zero or from very limited sales presentation experience. So how do you get into that? And like, because if it were me, I'm just being honest, if it were me, I'm like, I got to start over with a brand new class. Like, how do you keep that going?
I think that's the fun part, right? The fun part is when someone is new and they're really searching for help. I actually love teaching the systems over and over and over and over again, because each person is slightly different. They have different concerns and they're coming in with a different experience, a different, desire of what they want to do. And so, as long as they come in with an open mind, a willingness to learn and an open mind, I guess I'll say, we're going to have a great call, right? Because people are hungry for structure, and all the things I've created, I've mentioned this before, but all the things that I've created as our systems or structures were ways to support me first, right? I have stage fright. Okay, I created a system to help me reduce stage fright. How do I practice? How do I warm up? I jumble. I have a tendency, as you are knowing right here, to ramble if I'm not prepared, right? And that is not the best in a professional setting. You can't ramble. And so, all right, I created a system to help me. Okay, if I'm in a professional setting, how do you articulate your message quickly? Boom. And so depending on how someone shows up to me is kind of where I'll focus my coaching if I'm doing one-on-ones with them. Sometimes people show up and they're super negative and they have a difficult time. So then, boom, okay, when I was consulting coach people, I think we need to work on attitude. We need to work on what are the things that are really good about your situation. And so one of the things I learned early age is what are 3 great things about this? And so if someone's going to come in with a negative attitude, let me coach you on that. Let me teach you this. Tell yourself, what are 3 great things about this when something bad happens? And I ask them, what's bad that happened? Okay, what's one thing that's great about that? Well, for example, I broke my collarbone in one of my races, my first triathlon. I snapped it. And this is the first try. I trained for months and months, and I was so prepared for it. On the bike path, I hit a log, flipped over, cracked my collarbone, and I was not able to go on the race anymore. And so had I been what some people are, they're like, this is awful. This is the worst thing. I never gonna hit my goal. Oh, like, woe is me, complaining about the situation. I remember after getting over the pain, when the bones kind of settled back as it was almost poking through my skin, and I looked at it and was like, ow. I immediately went to my training. What are 3 great things about this? And my first thought was, well, I don't have to do the run portion of the race. I've never really liked the run. It's always been my hardest part. I don't have to do it. The second thing that immediately came is, well, I get to do this again because I always like to finish what I start. So I get to try it again, and it's going to be a success story. And the next year I came back and did it and finished it. And then the third thing is, this is going to make a great story someday. And so if you form the habit of telling yourself, what are 3 great things about this? If you can find 1, you can find 2. If you can find 2 good things, you can find 3. And if you can find 3, the sky's the limit. And that immediately starts shifting your attitude. When you go, what are 3 great things about this? Your brain has to get out of woe is me, and you have to start thinking and get logical and less emotional, and you start really thinking about that. And it changes your perspective. I don't remember what Tony Robbins talks about, but I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it's like a shocker. It's like the shock to your system. When you're in pain or you're hurt or you're upset and you immediately go, what are 3 great things about this? It's like that jolt. You're like, wait, okay, you get out of this kind of emotional and you get to more logical. And so that was, again, another long answer to how I help people based on where they show up. And I love it every single time, as long as they come up with an open mind. And if they don't, I've fired people. I said, listen, I have an agreement at the beginning. I'm going to give you everything I have. I'm going to give you, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And I need you to do the same if we're going to coach together. If I'm going to work with you, you need to show up. And if you don't, do I have permission to call you on it? And then also, I reserve the right to just move you on as a client if you don't. And so when we establish that relationship with your customer or your client or your prospect or whoever you're working with, you just let them know, and so it keeps it interesting. Anyways.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, so the process is probably very similar. The novelty is the individual personality that's coming to you. So that's what keeps it exciting, keeps it going. I imagine you probably had some people sent to you that wanted, or that came to you for coaching, that probably wanted to do and learn to do what you do and want to do what you do. And you probably have some people sent to you or had to come to you that their bosses are just making them do it. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with somebody who comes to you and is like, look, they're making me do this training, they're just not into it? Like, how do you approach that?
Well, awesome. Hey, listen, whether you may or may not want to be doing this, I commend you for being here. And we're going to have a great time, right? And it's really just about, I never force people to do what I tell them. It's always an offer. Here's an offer. I'm going to suggest. It's really how you handle the egos and the personalities. And so if someone's going to show up, they're probably closed-minded. They're probably closed off. And so my job is to just loosen them up and take the pressure off. I say, listen, I'm going to share some ideas with you. You can use them or don't use them. No worries. But let's just go for it. If you like them, I bet you, I challenge you to not find one thing we're going to talk about that's really useful. And so then it's a matter of, dialogue and really asking a lot of questions of where they're coming from and what they're working on and what is it that your boss wants you to work on? What do you think you could be better at? And so then, as I've kind of, in some business they call it the discovery, where you're figuring out kind of how they are, what they're working, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. And then you can then tailor the coaching to fit what they're looking for. Even if I'm teaching the same presentation system, let's say I've been asked to focus on introductions and closes. I still can customize my energy. I can customize the way I teach it based on how this person's showing up. The framework is the same, but the invitations and sometimes the dialogue is a little bit different to get there. Sometimes I'm like, listen, all right, well, you feel great? Here, give me your intro. Demo it. You got it? Great, let me hear it. I can't wait to hear it. Call them out. Show me what you got. Or they're really nervous. All right, well, let me give you some framework and let's figure out what your presentation is. Let's piece it together. Now give it to me. I'm all about them showing me. So if I teach them the system and then they show me, or if I go, you show me, and now you're coachable because that was awful, I don't say that, but then, they go, oh, they bumble through it. And they're like, oh, all right, well, you've got some areas to work on. Maybe they do it and they're great. And I'm like, awesome. There's only one thing I see that you can improve on. I don't care. As long as I'm helping them and showing up for them with a service-minded heart and a way that, I really do want to help you. And I'm not here to make your life miserable if you're coming in like a boss forces them to show up. Most people don't. Even when they're kind of offered, I don't know, maybe it's my way of kind of diffusing the situation, but most people, the vast majority, 90%, are just awesome and they're excited to learn.
No, and we all as humans have a tendency to think that our problems are unique. Like I'm an introvert. I can never learn how to do this. I can never learn to do what they're teaching because it's just not me. And reality is there's millions of people out there having the same thoughts. What would you say to somebody who's watching or listening to this that is like, look, I love it. I trust that this guy knows what he's doing after doing this for so long. I believe that if anybody's going to teach me to do this, it's going to be this guy. But if they just think like, I can't do it, and we don't have to go into like every step of like getting over stage fright or anything like that, but somebody who's wants to be a part of this, they're just like, I just don't know if it's worth me investing in this because I'm the most introverted, most stage fright, you name it. What would you say to somebody who had those questions?
Would you like to not be introvert, or would you like to reduce the nerves and stage fright? If that's something you want, I can give you a couple ideas, and I can support you. It's really a desire issue, right? If you really want to make a change, the site that we've created, Corey Lee, will serve that purpose. It will help you make changes in your professional life, personally, but you got to want to do it. And if you want to, then we've got the resources. This show itself right now is really designed to help people maybe gain confidence in certain areas. But there's a phrase that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so maybe right now you're listening to this and the teacher appeared, and that could be me, right? Or maybe this conversation at least gets you going, oh, I want to reach out, and you go online and you do some research yourself. Maybe that's that's the moment that I gave you. And if either way, it doesn't matter. If what you hear today inspires you to take some action about your career, your personal life, and get better in areas of your life, wonderful. I know that what we've got at Circle with the ACE, community that we're building, there's a really open, safe environment to help you thrive as a professional and personally. So
David just wants to help. Like everything he does emanates that, right? I'm listening here thinking about how can I use this on the sales calls that I do. And I really like my takeaway from that is like the support. Like I can support you. I can show you some things. It's like I'm not like completely takes the edge off the selling and puts you in like that higher position of authority. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love what I get to do. I love supporting people. I was just chatting with one of the heads of an organization that I'm chatting with right now, and he saw something on LinkedIn and he reached out to me because I think it's unassuming, and I think it was my post about the Mariners, my Mariners dancing guy that kind of inspired it. He reached out to me because I'm a human, right? And I think we're here on this earth to help each other. And so I made someone laugh, and they're like, I like this guy,
That post was just unexpected. It now has over 22,000 views on.
That's got to be my best ever, I think.
I haven't seen anybody be able to crest that. I always thought people who were able to do that were somehow like paying for something or advertising or boosting it. But yeah, you've doubled the actual number of your network to show that too. So it's like it shows impressions, which can be redundant, right? Like if I look at it 3,000 times, which I may have, and then and then there's like new members that have actually like actual LinkedIn members, like unique members that have seen it, and I think it's like between 14 and 15,000 now. So that's pretty incredible. And like you look at that, it's just pure. Is it pure good? Like nothing cringe, nothing staged. Like just a pure good viral post. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
interesting.
cool. Well,
Where's your next? What other personalities do you have? Is there like a Saturday night tap dance on the corner guy, or
We have to
like
now, yeah.
yeah,
I don't know.
you have no choice, David.
Yeah, how can I up level? How can I up level that? Oh boy. Well, yeah,
That's really good. So you're getting some organic engagement. You're getting this leader reaching out to you and having conversations. And I noticed that other people in sales are just reaching out like that. We haven't sent invitations to that are reaching out to you.
that's awesome.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
that's really
And it's
good.
really, again, just like earlier we talked about little steps, right? Little steps. So, I always say this about my children's book series, and I think it applies to this. Much faster, I believe, with this. But I think when I say with my children's book, I say, I'm going to be an overnight success in 10 years. In this, we're going to accelerate that big time. But, this is the beginning of what happened months and months ago. And for me, years ago. And so, this is kind of the culmination, and this is a culmination of kind of some of my life's work put into this community, and the fact that you guys are here to help me and have been such good teammates on this. I would not be here without you both. And I say this, I've said this often, I'll continue to say it. You are a great team, and I would not be here without the support that you've given me. And so I'm really grateful for that. And so who's your support system out there? Who do you have that can support you? If you got a goal, bring someone in. I can be that for you with regards to your presentations. Maybe you're a leader and you're running meetings. I can be that support if and our community can be. And so, hopefully we can provide
Sure.
some service.
Remember, time is a weird thing. When you're looking at something you need to accomplish, and you're like, oh, this is going to take me 6 months of being consistent, or it's going to take me 3 months, or a year, or 10 years. It always feels ridiculously insurmountable at the beginning. But then if we look back 6 months, it went by like that. So it always feels like it's going to be crazy in the beginning. But once you do it, like let's say a year from now, if somebody's like, hey, if we do this one thing for a year and we keep practicing and we keep trying, we do it for a year.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't do it now and don't start that year now, a year from now, if you didn't do it, you'd be like, well, I should have done it, right? Same thing with fitness, right? I mean, that applies to so many.
That might be the best example. Well, two things, that fitness and what you actually do with the children's books, because you could spend a lot of time writing those, as you know, and there's no guarantee of anything. Like, you're just writing and writing and writing and writing, where a lot of things in life now, and what people are getting so used to, is this automatic, like, instant feedback loop. They post something, they get something back. They're getting attention and everything else. But any type of writing, like book writing and fitness, like, you don't necessarily see results right away. You have to stick with
That's
it.
right. That's right. I mean, so that's where, okay, do you actually love what you do? Right? And there's another phrase, I said this earlier, but I said a version of this. It says, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first until you get better at it, right? And so what we've done and what you've helped me do is just get out and just start doing things, right? This is like 20 years. I'm finally starting to kind of reach out and share my stuff because there was fear holding me back. Fear, concern. What if I really get called out? What if there's like a better speaker coach who's like, Shoup, you don't know what you're talking about, right? I was like, no, everyone, I mean, anybody, even if you're a beginner, you can help someone be a better speaker, but there's that fear. And so you helped me get over that, team, right? You helped me get over that. And I reached out for help. So if you're alone and you're trying to figure out how to solve something on your own and it's not working, then reach out. I was fortunate that I ran into both of you, Corey first, and then through Corey Lee, that I was fortunate, but I reached out and I asked for help. And then when you delivered, I was like, gosh, you got to help me more. And so.
Well, same here. I couldn't have done what we've done for you without Irina. So she's my support network to help us keep our clients looking excellent, looking good.
That's right.
And one thing that I always have said is that life is a series of failures and successes, mostly failures, if you're doing it right. Meaning, if you're all successes, you're probably not living because your experiences are probably very few. The more you try, the more you want to do, the more you will fail in order to get to those successes.
That's good. Boom.
That's
Thumbnail
very well
that
said.
one.
All right. Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, boys. Well, this has been a great first introduction into like the three of us sitting down talking, learning a little bit about David's history. There's a lot in there we didn't get to between, you know, when you went to work for the company after coming back from overseas and all that to your corporate career and all the stuff you've done through there. So we'll have to do, and we'll be doing many more of these. We'll do follow-on episodes. What we would love is that, and this is exclusive for the community, this will be posted into the Circle community. We would love anybody has any questions on this show or any questions about any of our backgrounds, David, me, Corey, whatever. Go ahead and drop them in the comments and we'll address those in a future episode. So, but yeah, this is a great introduction into how everything kind of kicked off. And that's all I got, guys. I don't know if you have anything else you want to throw in here before we sign off.
Well, it's great. Thank you so much. Thank you all. We'll see you in the next presentation, the next meeting, the next whatever we can help you with.
Schedule the
Sounds
next
good.
one.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Got it.
Thank you guys.
Sounds good.
See you guys.
To be continued.